Hi, I'm Emily Bell, and welcome to Behind the Bookshelf. Today I'm joined by Samantha Vargas, epic fantasy author of Guardians of Alistile, a six-book series. Book 1, Risen from Ash, is out now, and Book 2, The Ashborn, comes out this September. Samantha is a mother, a wife, a writer, and a lifelong lover of books. Hi, Samantha. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to get to talk to you today and to learn more about your series.
Yeah, I'm absolutely excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, can you give us a brief intro into the Guardians of Alistile, Risen from Ash? Did I pronounce that right, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Risen from Ash, it's the first book in my six-book epic fantasy series, and it follows five guardians who are basically captured by a king as when they were babies, and they're stuck behind this magical barrier that puts them like away from the rest of the world. So nobody can come in, nobody can come out, and they're tasked with defending this kingdom. So they believe full-heartedly what they're doing is right and that their king is just. But when our main female character, Kiana, she discovers all of these lies that they've been told her whole life, starts to form this alliance with a rebel army beyond the barrier through a mind link. And then when that barrier starts to come down, the Guardians basically follow out and discover a whole world that they didn't know existed, where they also uncover things about themselves and their heritage and who they are, what their magic is, and what they're actually truly meant to be doing, which sets off the entire rest of the series of trying to learn out what their true purpose is and trying to defeat the darkness, essentially.
Okay, nice. And you said this is a book series, right? That's the plan?
Yes. It
All
was
right.
meant to be three, but somehow it morphed into six.
Yeah.
So yes,
Well,
six.
if it has more to tell, then, make it how it needs to be, certainly. I can't imagine building a world that is that deep, because I'm just a standalone girl, but my brain has trouble computing where you're able to tell a story that is six books long. So, are you somebody that you're always daydreaming?
Yes, it doesn't stop. You will probably, if you see my eyes glaze over, I am more than likely in my world. It's just like, hello, come back to reality. We're over here now. I'm like, oh my bad, sorry.
So, speaking of that, you've mentioned that this story's been with you for 15 years. Tell me about that. And was it a length of time that you've created this world, or did it all come down, at one moment?
It's a little bit of a mix. It's kind of funny. When I came up with this world, we had this huge ice storm that happened that basically cut the power, and we hooked up our house to the generator, and all we could really do was watch DVD players. So I put on Lord of the Rings for days, just days, the same movie. So good thing it was a trilogy, but I just watched it, and then at some point it just really drove me to want to build this story. So it started off kind of very basic. I was just trying to do something that's similar to that, just a adventurous quest to defeat good and evil. It started off way different. The world, I had nothing built out. I just kind of started writing the characters, writing the journey. And then we put a pause on it because life happened, college, kids, all the things. But it always stuck with me, the story did. And, I would just start building little snippets. What did I want this to look like? What kind of, fantasy characters and species do I have there? And what would work for a world to be with that? And then probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I finally said, you need a map now. And once I built that map, I just threw something together, pinpointed where I wanted different places to be. Once I had that, it was so much easier to finally start crafting everything, the whole journey, where they go, why they go there.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, after that, it just took some time to get the confidence to go. It was a start and stop, and then I lost chapters. I don't know how, and then it kept me at bay, where I'm just maybe I'm not meant to do this. And then finally, I was just kind of no, you're gonna do this. It's in your head, it won't leave. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the book as it's finished doesn't come to us. There's parts of us that we start with and are inspired, whether it's
Yeah.
this central plot, the journey, the characters. It sounds like the characters kind of came first for you. Is that correct?
They did a bit. Some of them did, and then they changed. But they definitely did come first in like the general idea, where I have some characters that did survive that like initial draft 15 years ago, where they were meant to be part of the story, and then I have other characters where I just completely scrapped them and revamped them. So when we started, it wasn't like the Guardians. I had like my main character, and she just had friends. But I was like, well, that's kind of boring. We should probably have more people working together. So then I did formulate like the team essentially. It's like a
Yeah.
little Avengers team.
It's so cool that you were able to shape it into this. Just like over time, how these stories change and they just take shape. It's always very interesting to me.
Yeah. I love
So book two of the series comes out in September, right?
it. Yep.
And do you have a title reveal for that already?
Yeah, it's the Ashborn. So Guardians of Alistile is like the whole series name, and then the Ashborn. And that's really heavily playing on like one of the prophecies that come into fruition, which it shows in book one, like the start of that prophecy, and then we get the full title from that, which guides our characters on their journey.
Nice. So what can we expect with the second installment? Is there more betrayal, more political intrigue, more magic?
Little bit of all of that. You could probably expect to see some of like the rebellion take shape, where they're really honing in on like, why are we doing this? Why are we fighting against everything that's happening? Uncovering the heritage. But you'll also see some of like those softer spots too, where you'll finally get like budding romances to take place in some of that like subplot genre. And then, the found family that really plays quite literally on the title of Found Family. You'll see a lot of that coming into play and just finding yourself. But then the magical use, it does start to escalate when they are uncovering bits of themselves and finding like where they actually belong, and like their magic gets stronger, and you get to play around a little bit with like, what does the light magic versus the dark magic look like, who has it, and so there's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. I'm not the hugest like epic fantasy reader, but I always feel like in book two, that's when the sheet just starts to get lifted a little bit and they start to realize, oh, okay, this is what's actually kind of going on here. And so those are always kind of like my favorite books to read in the series, or the second one.
Yeah, the second one's fun.
So, what made you want to be a writer? Can you tell me a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, I think I was about like 12 years old when I first grabbed like the interest of writing, where I am, and I'm trying to do a really good job at it now, but I'm like really terrible at verbally speaking. I don't know why, it makes me super nervous. And I just started to like write things down. You start with your diary, it's like journaling. And then I started with just like this random story. I mean, it's probably really bad, but I enjoyed it so much because I felt like it gave me a place to use words without having to verbally vomit everywhere, and then like you can like craft it in a way. So I started when I was 12, and I think it just took off from there, and then I really figured that I enjoyed writing a lot just throughout the teenage years, where I used it as a form of not like therapy. I wasn't like a traumatized teenager, but you go through like those years where everything's just confusing and you're trying to figure out like the pains and the joys of just growing up and being a person. And that's kind of where writing came into play, where it's just like everything I did was to write and craft a story to make sense of the world, honestly. So it's kind of almost like a forever thing.
Yeah. So you're probably a big diary person when you were a
Yes, love
teenager.
the journals. Yes, I have found some of those journals. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. And I love that you started so early. There's always, I feel like when I talk to people, there's always a spectrum. There's people who have been writing since they were kids or teenagers, and then there's people who kind of found that passion a little bit later. But
Yeah,
I love that you have those that you can refer back to, and you can see like, well, this is when the spark kind of ignited, and
yeah,
that's special.
yeah, for sure.
So now, as your writing has developed, are there any specific practices that you have now when it comes to writing and in crafting stories?
I'm trying to gain practices, because I think like everybody loves to use the term like a pantser, whereas like I love to just pull out either a notebook or my computer, and then I just go. Um, because I feel like before I get the idea, if I just like create one thing that feels special enough, then I can go back and like start crafting after that. So I try to just give myself the freedom to do it. And I know that there's like a ton of different ways that, writers do this. Some will just start to create ideas that are marketable, or some will just, plot very heavily and things like that. And I just try to let the chaos consume me first, and then I find the creativity through it. Because usually I'm, like I said, when I was like starting my writing journey, it is a lot of like processing and trying to work through things that you need to make sense of that are like real world applications, and then once you kind of like get that out, you can find something that's like a message that's special that might be needed by readers, so then I can craft a true story out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've was speaking with someone on the podcast, Brian Farrell, and he was saying that not to write themes, that themes will find you. And I feel like that kind of goes in with the last part that you said. There's a message that you'll find along the way that will like kind of resonate with readers. And you also said that you kind of just like sit down and type. And I know like as a mother, like you have to do that. You have to find the time in between. It's not always like, okay, this is my perfect curated time. I'm inspired. I'm going to say, for anybody really, you just have to sit down and see what comes. And if it's 100 words, then cool. If it's more, then that's even better. But and I think practices, you said you're still trying to find your practices. I think they change for people too, kind of like with every book and every stage of life. Like it's not always going to be the same type of work environment.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It just, depending on where you are, some things just don't stay the same. So I can't like hold myself to the rigidity of like, oh, I've got this specific thing. Even though I want to, I desperately want to. I'm just like, I need my schedule, but I'm like, that's not feasible, and you will hate your life if you can't like stay on your schedule or your certain practice, just because things are wildly changing and you never know what it's going to look like tomorrow. So chaos. We want chaos.
Do you find yourself taking like writing down actual notes with pen and paper on like your notes app, or like voice notes? I know people do it all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, I don't do the voice notes because, like I said, I'm not really comfortable verbally. It makes me so anxious that I start stumbling. But I have notebooks worth of paper. If I feel like I'm even blocked writing on my computer, I will switch it to paper, because I feel like when I go to paper, it allows me to be more like choppier. So I can write random things and then go back and fix it when I type it. So yes, I've got notes apps, I've got my pen and paper. There's like so many things everywhere. My kids will find them daily and be like, oh, what's this? I'm just like, don't take that.
That makes sense, because when you're just like typing it out or writing it out quickly, you're able to process those fleeting thoughts and ideas. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I will refer back to this and be like, what did I mean by that? So I've been trying to get better about like being more specific with what I mean, instead of this random thought that I think I'll remember, but I never do.
Yeah, it's chaos, but we make it work, and it hasn't failed us yet.
Yeah, it all comes together in the end. I mean, it is an organized chaos, for sure.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
So, what's something about yourself that people may not know?
See, that's a good question, and I know I've got these before, so I had to really think hard on that one. Because I try to be an open book when I share things about myself, but obviously I'm not like sharing every like detail of my life. Yeah,
selective.
Yeah, it's like, what do people really want to know? I mean, I'm sure people don't really care that I like go take walks outside, right? But I would say one thing is that I have a psychology degree that I don't use. And then I work in a job that requires me to like talk to people daily, and I hate it because obviously I'm like super
I'm surprised. Yeah, because you just told me you're like not a big verbal translator.
I know. I'm good at it. I'm like, I guess I'm really good at kind of like putting on that face, but oh my gosh, it drains me so much by the end of it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
how did I get into this job? But
Hmm.
I'm here, so yeah, yeah,
Interesting. And I did see on your website. So I want to ask you about the psychology thing before I get into this.
yeah.
Do you feel like your even though you don't like use it in your professional career, I would guess, do you feel like your psychology degree comes out in your writing at all?
Oh, for sure. A lot of things, especially like in like my second book, you'll see that I really hone in heavily on like my characters' traumas and things like that. Like I don't brush past things like that because I feel like it is true. Like you go to war, you suffer some like crazy manipulative king that, takes advantage of you. It's like you're going to have some sort of trauma that you have to deal with and you're not going to just be fierce and fighting through that. So you'll see that a lot in what I do with my characters and how they process things. It is very psychologically heavy.
I love that because yeah, what your traumas or like just your life experiences, they shape you as a person, and it shapes the characters too. And I love whenever the author like fully realizes them as a person. It makes them more like 3D instead of flat in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the other thing I wanted to ask you on your website, you said that you have like a love for trees. Tell me about that. I want to know more.
Yeah, I feel like being in nature and surrounded by the trees and like the flowers and the grass, it's so much more calming and worth seeing than being surrounded by buildings and a city with skyscrapers. And I've just always been like enamored by like the national sequoia forest and the redwoods and just seeing things like that. It's a serenity piece for me where I feel like that just every world should be full of trees and that's it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I can relate with that. I live in Hawaii and there's some very beautiful trees here, and it is just very grounding and reconnects you with yourself. And I would assume this because you do write like an epic fantasy. Would you say kind of like for that reason and just your appreciation of nature that kind of like plays a role in the way that you write your world building and stuff? It's very like nature influenced.
Oh yeah, yeah. You'll see in the first book, like our main, it's like an elvish city, and it's just giant trees, like colossal trees. And it's like you'll see a lot of my characters spending more time in the forests and taking care of the nature than you'll see them like going into a building and
Mm-hmm.
being part of that. Yeah, like all of my whole world is very based on nature. I have very few cities that are just specifically buildings, but everything else is like, oh, like we've carved our entire home into the mountain and we've got our homes and stuff built into the trees. So it's a lot of like building the world into nature as opposed to like tearing nature down.
That makes sense. And I feel like whenever there's magic in play, a lot of the times the magic is kind of like interconnected with nature as well, or like influenced by it in
Mhm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, if you could have a magical power, whether it's in your book or not, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, if it were in my book, I'd probably go with like wind power because it's elemental. I use elemental magic in my book, but like the wind power, they are able to like push themselves up into the air and like fly sort of and different things like that. So, but if it weren't in my book, I think I would probably go with like telekinesis. So I could move things and hopefully not
Mm-hmm.
have to like clean my house as often. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, let's just move these things out of my way.
You know what that made me think of when you were talking about wind power? Do you remember? I and so many people are majorly upset that it only had one season. I think it was called Motherland or something like that. It was about these witches, and they had like this wind power or something that
Yeah.
they could like speak out with their voice and stuff. For some reason, it made me think of that.
Yeah, we don't do it through voice, we do it through hand, but that would be cool to be able to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Makes me
So elemental magic. Yeah. So I'm thinking like wind, fire. Can you tell us about the different ones without spoiling it?
Oh yeah, that's not a spoiler at all. So, my main characters, there's five. One of them is very specifically nature. So she can
Mm-hmm.
command the vines, the trees, the leaves, flowers, all of that. Another does earth, so he does the stone. Basically the ground underneath our feet, the mountains, he can command that. Um, Another one has many magical features. He can do wind, illusions, and healing, which all kind of help him. He's pretty strong. And then my main character, Kiana, she has fire. And then the last one, she's got sun and weather magic.
Okay, cool. A
Yeah.
well-rounded group.
Yeah, it's all. I didn't want to be too like close to the beat, like where they're all doing the same thing. So I had to
Yeah.
spread them out and give them some unique features.
That makes sense because they need to be able to help each other. That what one person lacks, another person, can make up for.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned the telekinesis. Like, if it wasn't in your book, that was another one that you could have. I do not think that this is a unique experience at all. Like, maybe it's the weird kids. Whenever you were a kid, did you ever have that moment where you're like staring at something and trying to make it move?
Yeah, if I stare at it long enough, will it like
Yeah.
budge? And he's like, I swear it moved. I swear it did.
We were having dinner the other night, and my daughter is 7, and I caught her just like staring very intently at her glass, and I just started giggling. And then she got embarrassed. I'm like, no, it's okay. I did the same thing when I was a kid. I just think it's
Yeah.
cute.
We want to move things. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're just seeing what we're capable of. That's all.
I love that.
So, this is a question that I ask everybody. What is something that brings you joy right now?
Oh man, that is a good question. I feel like we don't reflect on that well enough in our day-to-day process. But I mean, I would say when I saw the question, I was gonna make the joke that it was coffee because like you need coffee to survive sometimes.
That is
But
what I look forward to every morning. So, that
yeah,
would be a fine answer.
if that's all that it takes sometimes. But no, I think some things that really do bring me joy is like when my daughter sees me like do these things. It's not even like on a selfish note. It's just like, oh, good, she recognizes that I'm like working hard for them. But it's more of like, I think she's seeing that, you can do the work and things can happen. Like there can be success in what you do. So it's just like knowing that she sees that and like that she sees me do this. Sometimes like she was just in here, she left, but she was like sitting there while I was doing this interview and just knowing that I can make an impact on her that felt better than like her seeing me work at a corporate job, which I still do, but like that doesn't feel impactful to me where I'm just like, oh, just you can go put your soul into a corporation and you can be successful, I guess, but it might suck your soul. But like seeing this part where it's like there's art that you can create and it might take some work and some time, but I just hope that you get that message and that you can give yourself into that as opposed to other avenues that just don't feel very fulfilling.
I love that answer. It is special, especially for daughters to see their mothers do things, especially as being a mother is, but seeing their mothers do things outside of that, and like you said, outside of just the corporate workflow, there's always time for your passions and your creative energy.
Yeah, for sure. My daughter, she loves art. She's like drawing. We have bins full of her papers because you feel bad throwing them away. Like as a parent, you're
Yes,
like,
oh my gosh, yes, I have a drawer full and it is getting to the top. Yeah.
yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Like we have like a legit like big bin full of her stuff, and then we're starting another one, and so she loves to draw. So that's really big for her. My son, he's 4.
Yeah.
He's not quite dabbling in like the creative space yet. And he's definitely like full on with that stuff, and he likes to just be a 4-year-old boy who is just touching and grabbing and destroying everything. So
Yeah.
where that goes.
Yeah, but I definitely, our children absorb what it is that we're doing. So even if it's not right now, which I'm sure they are, they're looking at you and they're admiring the fact that their mom wrote a book and they get older. I think that's really cool, just to show your kids that for sure.
Yeah.
So where can people find your books? And where can they find you? Where are you most active on social media?
Yes. I am on Instagram the most. So you can find me at Sam Vargas 2014. I am on TikTok a little, but like I'm not a big fan. I don't know. It's
Same.
not as I can't seem to figure it out, and that's okay. It's not for me. But I am on there if you want to follow me every now and then. I'll post something. But it's at Samantha Vargas 2014. And then my books, they are on Amazon, they're on Barnes and Noble, they're on my website, which is SamanthaVargasAuthor.com, if you want like signed copies or anything like that. And then the second book will be coming out, same thing. It'll be on all of those platforms. And yeah, I don't think there's anywhere else. I mean, I think there's a few indie bookstores. I could not name them off the top of my head, but a few bookstores have them just like around the country somewhere. They're around. Yeah. And then
That's
online,
cool.
there's also like another one. It's called like the Crafty Bookstore. That's an online indie bookstore also. So.
Cool. Yeah, and I've been trying to remind people, if you do know an indie bookstore and you want to purchase a book from there, you can go on bookshops.org, I believe, and you can get the book sent to there so that you can purchase it from an indie, or you can ask your indie bookstores to stock a
Yeah.
book if you think they might be interested in it. So,
Yeah, for sure.
well, thank you so much for talking to me today and for allowing me and the listeners to get to learn a little bit more about Risen from Ash and your book 2 coming out. Remind me of the name?
The Ashbourne.
The Ashbourne. Perfect. And that comes out September what?
September 14th.
September 14th. Perfect. If you want to keep up with Samantha, you can follow the links in the show notes. And if you're looking for a fantasy that has compelling characters, an animal companion, high stakes, magic, and mysteries just waiting to be uncovered, go pick up Risen from Ash.